Um, Not everybody who's doing engineering should be an engineer.
I echo that sentiment very much.
And I was forced to print those out, almost 500 pages. And we use these to give ourselves big thumbs up. And I said, well, look at the.
Hey Weirdo, welcome back. Today, my guest is not a politician. He's an engineer. And in Silicon Valley, his colleagues gave him the name the Juggernaut because once he locked into a broken system, he simply refused to quit until it was fixed. Thunder Parley, which is an awesome name by the way, arrived in California at 18 years old with $50 and a one-way ticket. He spent nearly 2 decades at Google building complex systems. Now he's running for governor of California as a moderate Democrat with the very specific promise. He only wants 1 term. He's not looking for a career in Sacramento. He's looking to fix the math. From the shadow budget hiding 22 taxes on your electricity bill, to the safety net that penalizes working mothers for getting a raise, to classrooms where violence goes unchecked while parents are kept in the dark, Thunder says California doesn't have a revenue problem, it has a spending addiction. Today, we're going to talk about how the Juggernaut plans to fix the machine. Thunder, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I ask all of my guests one question before I start. What is a truth in your industry that people do not want to admit?
A truth in my industry. So speaking about engineering,
Yes.
Not everybody who's doing engineering should be an engineer.
I echo that sentiment very much so. So I just, for the audience, can you give them a little bit of background on who you are?
Okay. So I moved to California. I grew up on the East Coast of the US, and I grew up in a multi-generational household. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and I just wanted to get out from a very small town, about 12,000 people. And I had the opportunity to go to California. I spent everything I had to try and put myself into school. Ended up getting a scholarship to stay. Ended up getting recruited my sophomore year into Silicon Valley for my first job. And when I graduated, I had the opportunity to go anywhere I wanted in the world, and I chose to settle down right in the heart of Silicon Valley. A couple decades later, I have walked away from tech after working on a myriad of problems and issues and launches, and decided to spend some time talking to people and traveling the state because California didn't feel like the California we all knew and loved. When I first moved to California, that was in 1998, people would come visit me, or if I went back to visit friends and family, they were, oh, it's so awesome, so amazing, California, oh, so cool, like so jealous. And now it's kind of becoming an international joke. You've seen the videos worldwide, the mental health and addiction crisis that we call homeless on the streets, the viral smash and grab videos. And it's, we see it in the streets. It's very, very visible, especially in our cities. And it upsets me because I've invested, I love California, and to see it become an international joke it breaks my heart. So a while ago, I had the conversation with my significant other, talked to her and said, we love it here, but we could leave and go move somewhere more affordable. And I've walked away from tech. I don't need to be here. And I said, I would regret not doing anything. But the luck I've had, the resources I have, I built my California dream, my American dream right here in California. And there's people that are suffering that wish they could move, or just being buried by spiraling bills and expenses everywhere. And so I spent time traveling, talking to people, trying to get at the root of the problems and come up with some solutions, and realize that we really it's a government issue and it needs to change from the top. So here I am. I said, this seems kind of crazy, but I could just sit there and complain about it, or I could try and go do something about it. And that puts me on the campaign trail, a place I never thought I would be because I never wanted to be a politician.
Just to give you and my audience a little bit of background, I did the opposite, where I started in the government figuring from the bottom up I could fix things. Learned after 8 years, that's not anything you can actually do. Only people from the top and people from the outside can make these changes. And I moved away from my job, from my hometown, everything, because I saw exactly what you're probably seeing in LA. The government becoming the problem more than the billionaires, as everybody keeps on saying.
Mm-hmm.
How do you believe that a software engineer can transform this over a career politician?
So a lot of my hands-on experience, especially while I was at Google, was built on transparency. And I would be known to jump in and actually fix things that sometimes weren't mine, right? It wasn't your team. It was, you could see it, something would break, you'd fix it. Plus, I just like to, that's me. I like to learn. It's aptitude, it's adjusting, it's bringing people together. These are all things I did in the corporate world, in a large company, working with different partners, working with differing factions that were sometimes at each other's throat, and bring out the data and really try to convince people or get enough people on board. And there's a lot of money in politics that generates a lot of propaganda, a lot of big egos. And for me, what I'm looking to be is more the voice of the people who feel that their voices are being lost by the time it gets to the Capitol. They might complain to their local government, but it's at the state level where certain things need to be fixed. And so I want to go in there, unburdened by any legacy decisions, any legacy donors, say, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to move us forward. This is like a company when, there's dysfunctional departments or whatnot. You bring in somebody fresh to say, like a new coach on a sports team. You just say, hey, last season's over. Can't change the record books. Let's move forward.
And what do you identify as the problems that are currently plaguing California?
Some decisions when they're made are not necessarily made in what's in the best interest of people, even though it's sold that way. It's a lot of where money goes and people running to stay in power. For instance, in this race specifically, we've seen the lieutenant governor usually runs for governor, right? That's sort of like vice president to president, right? But at the state level. She dropped out of the race early and is just running for like treasurer. So we see people their goal as politicians has moved from, maybe it started as trying to help the people, but more to win the next election to stay in power. And I am not that, right? We look at the field and we have a billionaire who wants the power. And I just did a video about why I think that is. And we have another lifelong politician who I say is just failing upwards. And people say, oh, well, he has the experience. It's like, well, I mean, I've worked with people that had lots of experience. They weren't the best people for the job. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Very much. The government is plagued with experts,
especially in management.
I've been told quite a few times by my manager to do certain things in tech. And I'm like, dude, your understanding is about 10 years out of date.
Yeah. And so I'm going back and trying to detangle these things. And just like in the corporate world, larger companies, things, you build up a lot of tech debt. We've built up a lot of government debt, fiscally, operationally. It's paralyzing. And so I want to bring more transparency. I want to leverage tech to, like, I'll just say right now, if I didn't have access to the amazing tools we have in AI and whatnot, I wouldn't be on there. I wouldn't have been able to go back and read through so many bills and follow the progress. And just, it's the efficiency that I've been able to do that maybe would take another politician years. And so when people have suggested to me, well, why don't you run for city council or for state assembly? I say, because that's not going to fix the problem. That's not going to fix the problem, right? If you have nails on your road when you drive away from your house, buying a new tire every day isn't going to be the solution to your problem. You need to get the nails out of the road.
Very fair. Do you understand what you're up against in terms of the bureaucracy behind everything?
Oh, for sure. From the beginning, because I'm a political outsider. I'm a Democrat. I was not allowed to go speak at our own convention in California for the California Dems unless I put $1 million into my campaign, because I had not previously been elected to higher office. I said, well, really? It's the party of free speech. Why, whereas I'm used to being, let's hear from everybody in the room. Maybe there's something we're missing, or maybe there's something else people need to hear. And so a lot of that's been trying to get my message out. We see even like the polling that happens. My friends say, Thunder, you're not in the polls. I said, well, to be in the polls only do like 800 people on average, 800 to 1,000 people in a state of 22 million voters. It's a very small sample size. And there's the polling methodologies. Yeah, they usually work great when there's like 2 or 3 candidates, not when there's like 60, not when there's people trying to break out. So then I don't get invited to the debates because I'm not in the poll, because the poll didn't have my name in it. So it's, it's just kind of funny. I laugh at it. And there's other crazy things we do too. One of the funnier things I had to do as part of running this, some people say it's just, Thunder paid a bunch of money to be on the ballot. No, you had to do all kinds of financial disclosures, get signatures from registered voters verified in your county or section of the state. One of the funnier things I did have to do, though, was because I'm fairly active in markets, my tax reports tend to be pretty thick with all the trades and repositionings I do with my investments. So you have to publicly disclose the last 5 years of your tax returns. So I had those in PDFs, and I was forced to print those out, almost 500 pages. Then I got on the train, went to the state capitol, and hand delivered them to the Secretary of State so that they could scan them into PDFs to put online.
Email just not secure in their opinion?
What's hilarious is that the other forms I have to do for the Secretary of State, like when I declared running my candidacy, everything else, are digitally signed PDFs. They accept PDFs through email. But when it came to tax returns, no. And there's no reason for this. But it's just, I'm just pointing out as one of the absolutely just like silly things that I found myself having to do.
The line I always got was, we've always done it this way. That's just it.
Yeah.
Anybody who's been in any system, the moment you hear that and you actually like learning and fixing things and making things better, that infuriates the hell out of you. So I did find that you are just looking to do one term. Why do you think that you only need one term to get this done?
Because I don't want to become a politician. I don't want to even be distracted during my term with the thought of having to spin up a campaign, run for re-election, everything. My campaign right now, people say, well, he hasn't spent nearly the money or raised enough. Well, donors were kind of cold on everything. A couple people have raised some millions, but me, I've saved a lot of costs. If you go to my website, I paid for the hosting and I built the site myself. I updated myself. I'm not paying staffers and consultants for all of that. Now, I do have a small team that helps me with some other things, but I file my own financials. I'm my own treasurer. I'm a hands-on guy because that's how I always was. It's a funny thing to say that through my entire career in tech, I was never a manager. I was always a leader. I was never a manager. I was offered management multiple times. And I said, no, I'm too hands-on to want to do that. And so as a governor, I think we need a governor who's more hands-on with the legislature, who's more hands-on with different departments, who's helping provide the transparency and feedback. And that's really how you manage. It's leadership. And so when people have come to me and say, well, you're not qualified because you haven't been a mayor or something like that, I said, no, I'm a leader. I know how to do this. I can look at numbers. I can actually audit things. And I can make my own assumptions. I don't need to pay somebody to tell me this is what you have to do here. And so,
what are you looking to do in terms of like modernizing the government there? I don't I suspect, because I haven't been to California, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but I suspect based off of what I understand that most of it is still manual processes, fax machines, copiers, sending invoices, all that.
We've done a pretty good job modernizing some of the systems, but there are definitely bugs in the systems. There's data that is not being surfaced that should be surfaced. So speaking from data and hopefully not taking too much of a tangent, one of my core policies has to do with education. Widely known in the US, California has some of the worst educational outcomes, K through 12.
Wow.
It was actually in the news recently that the University of California, San Diego, they have a entry-level math program for if you enter university and you need sort of remedial math. They had to retool the entire math program to pull concepts from first grade, as low as first grade. So we spend in California about $27,000 a year now. That's what we're up to per student, K through 12 per year. That's a lot of money to then send somebody to university who can't do first grade math. Mm-hmm. That's insane. One of my policies, and this came from a conversation I had about a year and a half ago with a mother in California who told me when her daughter was in kindergarten, she started acting a little different. Mother sensed something was going on. Mothers have a good sense like that. And after a while, because the school wasn't giving her information, her daughter wasn't saying anything, they finally cracked and said that your daughter's being bullied at school by a boy in her class. You know, you might think the name calling, the teasing, the poking, maybe hair pulling. Mm-hmm. No. He was coming up with creative ways he would describe to her how he planned to kill her. Oof. Why don't you think about that for a second? Mother obviously pulls the daughter out of school, gets her to a different school. Why was this not being conveyed? Because parents will get like a note like, so-and-so came into class with strep throat or a cold or something. But why was this not being conveyed?
Just for context, I've been in that situation.
Well, I hope you weren't trying to.
No, I was the bullied one that had to be pulled from school because of something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this, I was in shock that this level of what's going on. And the school said, well, we have to protect the boy's privacy. And that's why we couldn't tell you. And that's just to me, that's insane. So as I spent time talking to more educators, parents, whatnot, we realized that, and we passed laws in California. It says you can't suspend a student now for willful defiance in any grade. So we have a lot of these disruptions, and we have something that's called classroom evacuations or room clears. Finish with the girl and the young boy. Several years later, that young boy's in third grade, and the mother found out that he broke his teacher's arm.
Wow.
So there was obviously a problem. It went on for years. It was not addressed. Somebody gets hurt. So I hear concerns about safety in the classroom. And then these room clears is when a student's acting up, swearing, throwing things, threatening the teachers or another student. They clear out all the students from the class, leave the misbehaving child, wait for the administration to come down and get them calmed or reset, whatever. Takes 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes. These minutes add up. Mm-hmm. So these are lost instructional minutes where kids are just out goofing off in the hallway or on their phones. They're not out practicing timetables or, studying for an exam, right? This is just lost instructional time. So one of the policies I have is called LIMIT, which is lost instructional minutes in teaching, where as governor, I want us to track these and say with the billions we spend on education, where are we losing minutes? Because when we lose time for students, especially students coming from a lower economical background, they're losing their chance at future earnings and their own economic mobility. And for somebody like me who came from a middle, lower class family and found my economic mobility through education, very defensive of this. And so we're hurting students by allowing these students to misbehave under the auspice we're protecting them. And one of the things we've done in California is we have these dashboards about, oh, is the social climate good? Do the kids feel good about their feelings? Did somebody say something that made them feel good that week? And we use these to give ourselves big thumbs up. And I said, well, look at the outcomes. If your dashboard's all green and what's coming out is broken, your dashboard's busted. Right? So I want to start tracking this and say, where do we need to deploy resources, or where do we have, how do these correlate to outcomes instead of obscuring this data? And I think parents should be aware if their child's missing this much data, they should know so that they can make decisions of what's best for their children. And this is about protecting teachers and teacher safety and protecting the opportunities for these children we pay for. Because right now in California, between that and the affordability crisis, we spend hundreds of thousands to educate students whose first plan when they graduate high school is to leave the state. This breaks up families. This breaks up communities. And it's one of the worst investments you can make, to put all this money into a child to just have them leave or not be able to even participate in the economy and break up families. And to me, that's just cruel.
When did we become a society that prioritizes the child's happiness and well-being over their education and behavior?
It definitely seemed to have happened after I graduated. And I haven't pinpointed exactly when. And it might not matter. What matters is what we need to change. But on that point, more recently, and I wrote about this in an op-ed on my website, is that during COVID lockdowns, several states passed bills, California included, where we sent an extra $4 billion to our schools. But the stipulation was it could not be used for teachers. It had to be used on wellness coordinators or social climate counselors, these sort of like additional pseudo counseling, and not actually improving academic outcomes. So that's why I say, like, you get kids that graduate and they can name 20 genders and 20 identify their feelings, but they can't read and write and do basic math. And I mean, we've seen this in the stores. Like, if grocery store, the register screws up, a coupon for 50 cents doesn't come off, the first thing every single cashier does, pulls out their phone and uses the calculator. Like, you can't subtract 50 cents off a total. That's, to me, that's
been a cashier. It's, you have no time to pull out your calculator and be doing that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're busy. I do appreciate that you're looking to gut the bureaucratic bloat from these systems, because that is the biggest thing that I've identified being in the system is the people who get paid to do, or the big bucks to do the things, don't do the things. They manage the people doing the things that get paid pennies on the dollar.
And I mean, it's a great gig if you can get it, but do that in the private sector, not in our schools. I have a prioritization where I prioritize children because they are children. This goes back to what had sort of motivated me, right? What went from Thunder Parley being a sort of heads down engineer that worried about his technical stuff at work, having a paycheck, paying his bills, keeping a roof over his head, to I need to do something else. And we had laws that were being disputed in the state capitol about the penalties for trafficking children. And some lawmakers and groups came out and said, we want to keep this as a not serious crime. And a lot of other people were like, why is this not considered a serious crime or felony? You go to jail, like, you're buying and selling children. And you get the anti-incarceration absolutists. And I'm like, why are you prioritizing sick adults over children? Like, this, there's no law. This is not defensible.
Feel free to say no comment on this, but does this have anything to do with like people trying to defend the Epstein class?
Um, it's just another parallel,
Okay.
right? So I don't even worry about, because that's so far removed, and it's sick and it's horrible. But when we identify and we hear from sheriffs and whatnot that child trafficking is a problem, and you don't want to have serious consequences, then to me, it doesn't seem like, this is about transparency, accountability. And so I've seen some bills fought that is very perplexing to me. I understand the argument the other side's making, but it's pure BS. It's gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I say frequently on the trails. I'm sick of the gaslighting. I'm sick of being lied to. I'm sick of just not paying attention, hearing everything's good, pretending my tax money is being used in a generally good way to generally help people less fortunate than me. Instead, find out it's enriching a lot of people who are, in some cases, making a lot more than me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Accountability with homeless spending. Big headline in California. Over the last 5 years, we spent $24 billion. Homelessness is up almost 30-40%. Where's the money going, and what is it doing?
So this brings me into the conversation that I just listened to in the All In podcast with Spencer Pratt. The money is going to NGOs, but the NGOs are not giving the money to the actual problem. Is that something you also see up at the higher levels?
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, generally, if you're getting paid to solve a problem and you're going to keep getting paid, you don't solve the problem, right? And what I want to see is, I want to see accountability here. I've spent time, I've served meals to the homeless. I spent time talking to people that were unhoused, formerly unhoused, recovered addicts, to hear their stories and their experiences going through our systems. And so I want to move away from policy and programs that just don't work. Our problem's been, when we asked where's the accountability, where'd this money go, what outcomes did it produce, everybody's, oh, we didn't track that. Kind of like in the schools, we're not tracking the lost educational time. When it came to this, we're not tracking the outcomes. We're not saying, is this actually effective? And it's led to some crazy policy that I know Canada has shared as well, like the insistent housing first for everything.
Mm-hmm.
With somebody suffering from addiction, and where it intersects with mental health issues, psychiatric issues, a roof doesn't fix that. Mm-hmm. We've had problems in San Francisco, which I'd say, probably similar issues in like Vancouver, where we have a tremendous amount of overdose deaths happen in only a couple addresses. And these are the housing first providers, where we just shove somebody off the street into a hotel room to do drugs until they die, usually meth and fentanyl. And to me, that's cruel. That's not helping people. That's not saving people. That's not something I should say, hey, I feel really good about this. And somebody will say, they got to do what they wanted. But did they really want to do that?
No.
Or did they have a problem that we could help them treat and recover from?
There's a lot of talk right now in Canada, especially because we have MAID. And that system next year comes into fruition for just mentally ill people, which we're scared for, because a lot of these people don't want these issues. They just need the support to get to the next stage, to be better. But instead of support, we're just handing them more drugs or our way out. And it really concerns me, especially with the emergence of AI and all of the medical and sociological and planetary solutions that are about to come with it. There's so much hope, but then we have an entire base of people that are just don't have it.
Yeah. So part of my platform is, I wanted to budget to building out infrastructure. We spent money on all kinds of programs, but we haven't spent money on infrastructure. The way I look at it is, the state should be shepherding money to build infrastructure so that we can have safer, cleaner, healthier communities. So this is hospital infrastructure, because we have what I call medical deserts across the state. Some people think of California, they think Los Angeles, San Francisco, these dense cities. But we're also the breadbasket of the world. We have these huge rural stretches where it's these are people too. These are Californians that I care about.
Mhm.
And I want to build out, one of the stories is I live in one of the larger cities in California, San Jose, population 1 million people. And yet we only have a handful of psychiatric beds. And sometimes patients need to be transported like 120 kilometers, 90 miles. I think those are probably pretty close, to have a bed. And there's no excuse. We just haven't prioritized building these facilities we need to help people. Because we have a lot of good programs for somebody who might temporarily lose a job, domestic split, help them get on their feet, temporary shelters into housing. But for people who really need help and will sometimes refuse treatment, we're not using the right tools, and we don't have enough of the right facilities. And so we've underinvested there. And so we have to fix it. We can't pay somebody else that's not building anything to fix it. And so to me, that's why it needs to be a statewide thing. And that's something you can fix from the top.
Where do you stand on energy? I saw in one of the things that I read that were one of the reasons you started running was because you found the shadow budget of energy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I pay all the bills. I'm just like other Californians. I do the grocery shopping. I pay the bills. I have the same expenses you do. And when I see them just continue to go up for no reason, we spent massive amounts of money to build out solar. A lot of solar. Some people might say too much solar. In fact, one of the things I wrote about is that in the state of California, every year we pay, and we're up to, I think over the last 2 years, it's over $150 million. We've paid the state of Arizona next door to us to lower the electric bills for their customers, while I am paying what is about 4 times the national rate for electricity. We get so much electricity from the sun that I have to pay so much more for it. What happens is we've overloaded our grid. We call it the duck curve. When we get so much beautiful sunny California, so much solar, our grid can't handle it. We don't have storage for it. So energy rates go negative. We pay neighboring states to take it, and then they lower the bills for their customers. And so I run my air conditioner for a couple days, and I have a $500 bill. And then friends in Texas and Florida who are running their air conditioning 24/7 are telling me, well, my bill's like $100 a month. And so I dug into the math because electric bills are pretty complex. And you see all these costs and everything. And then going back to there's about 22 different taxes, fees, and social programs. When you pay for electricity, when you turn on a light switch, you're not just paying for generation transmission. You're paying for your neighbor wants to get a heat pump in, and we're going to give them $1,000 rebate, or we're going to give somebody else some bill help. And so you have to pay more. And then what we've actually created for all the people who want to claim this is progressive and this is good equity, wealthier homeowners who have bought solar systems so that they use minimal electricity, they're not paying these taxes and fees that are attached to electrical usage. This has caused billions of dollars to have to be shifted for grid maintenance, upgrades, everything onto renters and other ratepayers. So how is this fair? It should actually be in the state budget. And we need more accountability for our utilities because we've created our utilities are basically government regulated monopolies. And my opinion that I feel is fairly objective is that we've done a really poor job of regulating them. And going back to government cronyism staying elected, our current governor, Gavin Newsom, who is pals with Trudeau.
And very aware of their relationship and everything going on. I really appreciate Nick Shirley, and I hope that bill does not go through.
One of the things he did is we have a commission. It's called the California Public Utility Commission, and they're supposed to approve all the rate hikes, look at the numbers they're given from the electric company, make sure that, hold them accountable. Well, when our biggest utility, which is Pacific Gas and Electric, commonly called PG&E in California, was found guilty of over 80 homicides due to their negligence in the fires, our governor was running around saying, let them go bankrupt. And if they're a publicly traded company, this is their fault. Let them go bankrupt. COVID happened. There was the big scandal where he was at the French Laundry, which is a 3 Michelin star restaurant up in Napa Valley, up in wine country. It was all in the papers. And, oh, everybody else is locked down and the governor's out having $700 meal, whining and dining. What very few people talked about was who he was there with. It was the birthday for one of PG&E's top lobbyists. Shortly after that, he stopped saying, let's let the electric company go bankrupt. The state will take over, whatever, run it as a nonprofit municipal utility, and drove legislation through that he signed that put the reparations for what they did onto the ratepayers and insulated them if they got a safety certificate from future liability. He then took his chief energy advisor, Alice Reynolds, and installed her as the president of the California Public Utility Commission, where over the last several years, they've just approved rate hike over rate hike over rate hike. And our electric rates have gone up over 60% in 5 years, 5 or 6 years, and over 100% in the last decade.
Wow.
And then he recently, because she was about to term out there, and I was thinking as governor, one of the first things I'm going to do is make that change, because I don't feel you've done a good job looking out for the ratepayers. He moved her to a different part of the energy, which is CA ISO, and where she's now will have several more years there. And it's just keeping people paychecks on taxpayer dimes. And it's this cronyism of keeping people jobs that your jobs are not serving us. You're not taking care of us. And so that's one of the bigger things that just, it gets me fired up, and I'll call it out. And we heard there was a debate on TV that I was not invited to, but all the other Democrats gave Gavin Newsom A's and B's on his handling of homelessness. And I'm like, how can you say he spent $24 billion? The problem got way worse, and that's a passing grade. That's like the grade inflation we hear about in schools. And it's almost laughable, except it's hurting people. It's hurting people across the state. People are suffering. People are stressed, strained, and sometimes just leaving when they can. Some people can't leave. They're here. They have to take care of family, or they're tied to their job, or some other reason. They're children. They have to be here, and we can do a lot better.
I appreciate that you're talking about cronyism. It does not get talked about enough. Everybody just points the finger to capitalism, and then they're like, it's capitalism. No, it's cronyism. There's a difference. So I appreciate I actually wrote a song about that.
Yeah, but you're right, because in true capitalism, I legally cannot put solar on my house and disconnect from PG&E. Mm-hmm. I have to pay them, even if I use zero of their infrastructure. It is illegal for me to not be connected into that infrastructure. And I don't have any other choice.
It's like, if you're connected to the grid and you're the one supplying it, because that's what cutbacks from the company, and I know they're not coming back because I'm in the same system. We're not getting cutbacks.
Well, yeah, so we used to, and this is one of the things that the CPUC president actually got backlash from a court, and then another court upheld it, was they used to reimburse people for giving electricity back to the grid, right? When, as we talked about earlier, when we have too much and it goes negative, they said, oh, well, now it doesn't make sense, because if we have to take a loss on it, we're going to give you like a fraction of a cent, like literally so small. But at the same time, they're giving somebody that fraction of a cent. I'm paying damn near 60 cents for that same electricity to basically come across the street from my neighbor. Yeah. And so to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
I'm really just seeing how much you can change with just doing so little, in terms of just what we talked about here. I'm over glorifying it and saying it's little, but it's little in terms of what we're talking about and discussing, because all you've basically said is we need accountability and we need enforcement. There we solve the problem.
Yeah, get some more transparency. Get some data out there. Let's make sure we're analyzing it. Let's make sure everybody's staying honest. Going back to the engineering world, that's, people would review your code, and at Google, like, everybody could see your code if something is wrong or not. And so you did good work because everybody could see it.
One of the things,
right? When we hide things, it creates the wrong incentives.
One of the things that,
I'm not saying people are bad or people are being evil. I'm just saying let's be transparent and help keep everybody honest and help people improve.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that really disgusted me and why I left, one of the reasons I left the government was because I was told specifically not to build a metrics dashboard, because it meant that we would actually be able to track the employees' workload, how much they're doing, what they're doing, everything. And I was explicitly told not to build it. And I'm like, as a software developer, as somebody who's paying taxes, this is not something I'm okay with. And I left my good job. Like, I'm not making anywhere near what I was. But I left it because I had a moral, I have a moral compass. I can't get past that. And I don't want to be the problem in the system that I think a lot of people are okay with. Your position is going to probably come with a lot of job loss. What do you say to that?
It doesn't, well, as far as job loss, we have lost tens and tens of thousands of private sector jobs in California. Yeah. We've had hundreds of companies leave and take those jobs. The only thing keeping our sort of jobs number together is government-backed jobs. Now, some of them we need, like healthcare, but I don't want to frame it as Thunder's coming in as job loss. I'm coming in to start showing people the data so that people can make the right decisions. Does that mean some sort of job restructuring? Maybe it means people move into new positions. Maybe we fix systems. Maybe people are able to retire a little earlier than they planned. Maybe they find a new job that is much better than what they're doing, right? We have a very rapidly changing economy. Right now, it's kind of in the wrong direction, save for like our gem of AI development in San Francisco. But I want more people to benefit from that. And I want more businesses and I want more great jobs. That actually goes into one of my other core policies, which we call math. It's a nice play for me. I was a math and computer science major, which is making advancement tax-free for households. And right now, part of this is federal, but at the state level as well, we have incentives that take care of people on the very, very low end of the income ladder. But as you mentioned in the intro, like there's a scenario where a hardworking single mother, we might be paying for her childcare, which in California is about $22,000 a year. She gets a small raise or promotion, maybe a cost of living adjustment, a few $100 more a year, which after our taxes isn't much. And she loses her health care. It's a hard benefit cliff. We call these benefit cliffs or sometimes poverty traps, where you almost lose the incentive to work more. You have two incomes, two decent earners trying to raise a family, put the kids through school. They quickly get into this tax bracket, whereas they make more money, we take huge chunks away from the state. To me, it just feels, going back to a moral compass, it feels wrong to disincentivize success. There's nothing evil about getting a raise, working harder, getting promoted. We want to promote these things because I want people to have people who want it to have these paths to economic mobility and not feel like I'm going to be punished for it. And so part of this is to say, we're going to take a number and say, for a family household, this first amount, about $98,000, which is just above the median, tax-free. And once you're over that, it goes to a flat taxation rate. And what this will do is this will actually incentivize the creation of businesses. We'll also work to smooth these benefit cliffs so that you don't lose benefits. I've talked to real people in California who have refused picking up an extra shift because that extra shift would have put them over their income limit where they would have lost hundreds of dollars a month in groceries. to take home an extra maybe $80 after taxes. That's why are we punishing people that are already struggling? Right. And also, why don't we give them the incentive to say, if you do more, we're not going to penalize you for it. Right. To me, it's absolutely insane that this is still a thing. But most of the people who are doing the laws around this or have the nice jobs around this, they're not affected by it. So to me, it feels like they don't care. So again, this is being a voice for all these people, for the small business owners that want to bring on more employees, these employees that want to keep more of their paycheck. Instead of saying, give the government the money and we'll figure out which special program or pay somebody to give you money is going to go to, just keep it in your wallet and decide what you're going to do with it.
Not to throw my PM under the bus, but he's never bought a grocery in his life. And yet we're handing our tax money back as a grocery credit to help us out. Meanwhile, we have the highest food inflation in the G7, and whatever we get back is already eaten up by inflation. But just keeping those taxes in the wallet would have given the opportunity for people to use it the way they needed it, and in that time. It's the government trap that the government is always the best friend of the people.
Yeah. And I mean, some of these programs are very well intentioned and some of them work okay, but we need to track them and have some accountability. It's not the big bad wolf. It's just, when you see how much your people are putting in, for me, I'm not even really as concerned with the amount. It's what are you doing with it? Am I actually enabling something that is uncouth? And that's what I worry about. And that's what I'm focused on now. And my campaign is part to make the change, in part I've been opening eyes when the discussions I have with just regular Californians, when they hear I had $1,000 electric bill because I had small children. I had to run the air conditioner extra days, and $1,000 a month for electricity. And at the same time you hear, well, your neighbor producing solar is getting paid a penny for it. And also across the state, we're lowering their bills because we took so much of your money to build solar to help people in another state. It's mind blowing.
Why are you?
And then
why are you running as a Democrat, not a Republican?
So I've gotten that question. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I believe in liberal values. I believe in helping people. I believe actually in a lot of progressive ideals. I want people to have health care. I want to help people. My stances have always been that. But to me, one party shouldn't own common sense, right? One party shouldn't own responsibility. So here, and this will directly address your question, because I'm not afraid to call out my party when they're doing things wrong or supporting the wrong issues. In the 2024 election, we're not talking about the president, November 2024, in the lead up to that, we talked about the situation on our streets, drugs, fentanyl, rampant shoplifting. 10 years ago, California had passed a law that basically decriminalized shoplifting. We were all sold this sob story about how people are starving in the streets. They're just trying to feed themselves or their family. It's like the old in Europe and Italy and Greece, where they actually had this issue where, let's not lock up somebody for stealing $1 worth of bread because they're starving. Mm-hmm. Like, that sucks, but
that's the under
have some compassion, right? It's a gray area, right? Yes, there's a law, but that's not our most important thing, right? This is what we were sold. But what the actual implementation was to fully decriminalize it. You could go walk into a store, take $900 worth of goods, walk into the store next to it, take $900 of goods, go back to the first store, take another $900 because it was only per incident, per store, the limit. If it's under $900, you're good. Also, like $900, like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you feeding? Like, how big is your family? And so this got obviously abused and exploited, especially, you have organized retail crime, but that wasn't just it. For people with addiction and mental health issues, it was steal, then the term's fencing, sell it to get money, to feed the addiction, it feeds this cycle. So when I talk about complex systems, this is a system where you started with, we don't want to put people in jail for taking some bread, but what have we enabled here?
Yeah.
What is the actual outcome? And so by Citizens Ballot Initiative, this is where if you get like 1 million signatures, you can put something on the ballot. This was crafted by our district attorneys who prosecute crimes. And it said, we're going to make this a crime again, where if you repeatedly shoplift, there's consequences. And if you're selling a bunch of fentanyl on the streets, there's consequences. And I thought this was reasonable. And the Democratic Party came out and said, we're very strongly against this. Our legislature wrote safety bills that were perceived safety bills, but then put poison pill language in them, where if this voter initiative passed, this wasn't going to pass. They got called out on that. And I was like, why are our legislators trying to poison pill public safety bills? And I publicly wrote an op-ed because Gavin Newsom was out talking about, well, California's more strict than Texas on shoplifting, which anybody at face value says immediately that's suspicious. But to me, that was like, you've crossed a line from bending the truth to you're just, there's enough poop on the streets. We don't need it coming out of our governor. And so I wrote an op-ed that was published. That's broke down exactly why this is definitely not true and why I'm supporting this proposition to change it. And it passed by 70% of the state. It was the biggest landslide in the entire election. 70% of the state said, we're sick of the shoplifting. We're sick of not taking care of the mental health and addiction and drug crisis in the streets. This isn't a war on drugs. This is about accountability, reclaiming public spaces, and having some accountability. And I stood with that. And I was furious that my own party was pushing people to say, no, like, you're telling me what I see and experience in the streets, like, just be okay with that? No. And so I broke hard with that. And if you're going to represent California, I'd like to represent the 70% of the people. I didn't care what party they are. And so, yeah, I'm still a Democrat, and plenty of other Democrats and some of the mayors, whatnot, stood up and said, like, why is Sacramento, the capital, so intent against this? But you go to the cities and
they're all for it.
They're supporting this, right? And so that's where I am. It's very much I'm generally aligned with my party, but I'm not afraid to step outside and say I'm doing the right thing. It doesn't make sense for me to change parties for that. I'm not, at heart, I'm not a Republican, but I don't hate them. Yeah. I don't hate people for being in a party. And we've seen, I did an analysis I posted on X of the certified voting results from 2020 versus 2024. How many millions less voted? What changed with party registrations? And a lot of people have moved to no party preference, where they're either sick of one party or the other, and they're just going to vote on who they agree with. And so they're becoming a much bigger chunk. But
just something I don't know if is possible or something you can do, but is there a way for you as a state to be able to say, like, hey, when we come out with a bill, you can't just throw in shit that's not, things that are not just unrelated to the bill in order to tank it?
Well, I mean, as governor, the nickname I have is the People's Pen. Okay. I felt our current governor, Gavin Newsom, he did veto some bills that I thought was important to veto, but he didn't use his veto power enough. Some of the bills, one of the bills that he vetoed in October of 2023 was, and this made it through our legislature, of course, there's a supermajority, so, was to fully decriminalize fare evasion on all public transit systems.
Okay.
Now, there's a segment of people who are like, well, public transit should be free. You can make a case for that. But here's the facts. We have several transit systems that are severely badly structured, that they are way too expensive. The one that's closest to me is a heavy rail system that is basically going to be bankrupt next year if they don't get another tax. That's only a temporary bailout. They are moving 60% less people, and yet their operating expenses are up 30% over the last several years. they refused to do certain things, automations, whatnot, just operational overhead. They actually opened a brand new station during COVID lockdowns and ran basically empty trains while paying people double time for hazard pay to be train operators or in stations that were, I stood outside of them and watched it, maybe 6 people a day max. Some days just, I didn't see anybody. Yeah. Just crazy things like that. And I'm sorry, I kind of forgot where we were going.
I just wanted to like say like, the question was just kind of like, is there ways to make it so that bills can't be bloated with things that can tank them?
Yeah, veto them. Line item on budget trailer bills. That's the $4 billion I mentioned earlier for schools. That's how it snuck through, was on a trailer bill. But the governor knew, and he was sold that, you know, this is great, and this is going to give kids access to more medical stuff, and this great thing for the communities, and it's not addressing the core problems.
Very fair.
So yeah, the responsibility on the governor is to actually know what the hell he's signing and be willing to push back, or hopefully have these discussions ahead of time to work with the legislature to focus on the priorities. And the biggest responsibility the governor has is the budget, besides appointments to all the various agencies that we have. And so with the budget, you can kind of control more priorities, but it's a delicate balance. And I don't want to be adversarial to the legislature. I just want to say, like,
let's fix the system.
Votes coming for Thunder. We want Thunder to fix this. If Thunder fails, it should be on Thunder and not, you refuse to listen to the people, because that Prop 36, that 70% landslides, was the people of the state saying, our legislature is not listening to us.
I think you're one politician that is coming out, or you're one of the very few politicians that is willing to take the onus for your mistakes and your successes. And honestly, I really do hope you get into office, because I can see where you want to take things, and I can see you doing your best to get there. Honestly, knowing the system, I know what you're going to go through, and I applaud you for trying. It's hard for me to see the outcome, and I hope with all my heart that it could be that way. And I think you have the right ideas going forward. We're just at the end here, so I want to give you the last couple minutes to just plug everything that you want to plug before we end.
Well, first, I would encourage people that if you are paying taxes, you have a government over you, pay a little more attention to more than the headlines. Talk to people. If you're in the US and you want to chip in on my campaign, or just see what I've worked on, I've spent so much time on my platform, my op-eds that the media wouldn't publish, that are very, very raw, very telling. Everything from the hidden taxes to failures to secret deals that other politicians have made. The biggest compliment I've gotten was, you don't sound like a politician.
You sound like an engineer. I
was also told I didn't sound like an engineer, and I thought I was a pretty damn good engineer. But I want that information out there, because I was lucky enough to sort of stumble into it from my own frustrations, because I paid attention. And I want to share that. And I think when people start to see that and care more, we can start to move in more reasonable directions to truly help people. So if you're out there, check out my site at votethunder.com. And if anybody ever wants to email me, message me, follow up, contact information's there.
And I'll make sure everything's down in the comments down below for everybody out there. And I really, really do hope you get in. This is an endorsement from the Weird Canadian, Thunder for California governor.
Well, make sure it's not international election interference. I don't think it is. You can cheer for me. Just
yes. It's not an official endorsement from Canada. I'm an individual. I'm just called the Weird Canadian because I'm a weird dude and I love Canada. To everybody out there, I hope you enjoyed this. And if you need anything, please reach out, comment, subscribe, everything I'm supposed to tell you. To everybody out there, thank you for listening and stay weird.
Yeah. Check out some of my videos too on my socials. They're linked off the website.